good. Hello, my name is Carl. Welcome to my workshop and welcome to my YouTube channel. So today we are going to be on Harrison Mill Resto 24, I think I'm right in saying. Now we're going to be doing part 2 of the Y-axis rebuild, which is going to be fitting the saddle, which you can see just about here. And as to that end, rather, I am now working on some of these parts here. These are the strips that basically fit underneath the saddle and clamp it to the underneath of the kneeways. And these have a really simple gib in them. I'll bring it a bit closer to show you, look. So they have a really simple flat gib and then 2 grub screws underneath, pass through, and you can see the drillings in there where the grub screws go. I've got new ones, and they also have nuts on them to lock it. A lot of these, when I took them off, all the adjusting grub screws had been sheared off and I had to extract them, and there was quite a bit of corrosion on these as well, presumably from coolant that somehow managed to get underneath there and it hung around. So what I'm going to do now is, it's a long time since I stripped all these off. I did clean them up at the time, but I'm going to give them another go over and just a tickle with a stone on the gibs and all the mating faces, and then we'll move up onto the machine. We'll get the we'll get the saddle onto the knee, and we'll see where we go from there. Stay tuned. Right, so I've just finished cleaning up the strips and the gibs. Just took a few little burrs off them with a file and ran a stone over them, because it was some time ago that I actually originally cleaned them up. What I'm going to do now with the saddle is I'm going to knock this bush out where this is the old lead nut, but it fits in there. I'm just going to knock the bush out, which will give me a better view through this hole, this bore here, so that when I come to lift the saddle onto the ways, I can actually see when it's engaged with the nut. So what I'll do is I'll just get a hammer. I've got a socket there to use as a drift. You'd have thought I would have got a hammer out already, wouldn't you? But there you go, I didn't. Right, let's have a look at what we can do with this. There we are, that's it out. I'll show you that. There it is. It's just a little top hat bush with a counter bore for a 1/4 UNC screw. Right, so we'll get back over to the machine now, or over to the machine, and I'll show you what's going on there. Right, well, I've given the ways a last clean. I took all the masking tape off them that was to protect them. I've given them a last degrease and just another little rub down with a stone just to make sure I got all the high spots. You're probably wondering what this long 1/4 UNC screw is doing in the lead nut. The purpose of that is so that when I lift because the lead nut's able to move, and I want it to stay perpendicular to the ways. When I lift the saddle over, which is heavy, once I get it over that screw, then that should act as a guide to lead the nut into the hole, and I can use that to sort of steer it a little bit as well. That's the plan anyway. So what I'll do now is I'll get some oil on those ways and some onto the ways of the saddle as well, and then I'll bring you back when I'm starting to lift it on. So it always seems to work out this way. I started to populate the threaded holes in the gib strips, or the strip it's called, with the gib inside it, that actually adjusts the gibs for these 1/4 UNC grub screws. And of course some of them needed to have a tap put through them. It's always the way, just when you think you're getting somewhere. But never mind, it's a minor thing. We'll just carry on with these. There's a few of them to do. I've got 4 holes I think, and then we'll carry on with the procedure that I was going to do, lifting the saddle onto the ways. Okay, so you're in a not too dissimilar position from yesterday for the saddle reassembly now, as you were yesterday for the lead screw assembly. So what we've got here now, I've got all the components laid out. ready to go, and I'll show you that now. So if I just bring you back a little bit, you can see there, I hope anyway. Let's just tilt the camera down a bit so you can see. And I'll read from my notes so I can tell you what we've got exactly here. So I have the jib strips for the left hand side on the left hand side, those for the right hand side on the right hand side. I've got a box here with the 2 1/2-inch UNC nuts that are for the locks for the saddle and the 2 washers for them. I've got 8 5/16 UNC bolts for the strips. I've got a 1/4 UNC bolt for the lead nut. I've got these 2 springs which are used to bear against the top cover that goes over the top of the slot where the lead nut is to put pressure on it. To fit them as well at the end. Tools wise, I've got my tools here. I've got a 3/16 socketed Allen key here, which is for the 1/4 UNC bolt. I've got a 7/32 socketed Allen key for the 5/16 UNC bolt. I've got this, look at that, delicioso, tiny little ratchet handle, and that has got an 1/8 socketed Allen key for the 1/4 grub screws that are in the jibs, and I've got a 7/16 spanner for the locking nuts for the 1/4 grub screws. Now, I've got the grub screws fitted into the strips after I put a tap through some of these, as you just saw, and they're not actually bearing against the gibs at the moment, so they are, or jibs or gibs, I don't know which one it is, anyway, interchangeably. So they're not actually bearing against them. Once we've got these in, then we can adjust them. And I've also got the clamps as well. Right, so without further ado, I'll move the camera back in and we'll get some oil on here and we'll go for it. Right, that's you shifted back a little bit, so we'll lube up the ways, as the actress said to the bishop. That's actually not a way there. It's the V that's the way. We'll put some underneath there as well where the gib's going to slide. Everything's going to be well lubricated, so don't worry too much about that. Right, we shall now turn you off. Right, that's the ways on the saddle lubricated, the ways on the knee lubricated. Everything's clean, everything's ready to go. I've shifted you a little bit so you get a bit of a better view. So you might have to bear with me now whilst I grunt and moan and groan, because this thing is extremely heavy and I've just lubricated it liberally. Right, hopefully we're going to be able to get that engaged. Yeah, yes. Lovely, lovely, lovely. That went about as well as I could have expected it to. I can unscrew that now. Right, so what I'm going to do now is we'll put a bit of oil down there. We'll get the top hat bush in and we'll get that 1/4 UNC screw in there. So I have the top hat bush. We'll put a bit of oil down there so that where the lead screw interfaces with the saddle is nicely lubricated. Let's put a bit of oil around there actually before we slide that in. I know it's not going to move, but we'll just put a bit of oil around it as a good practice between mating faces. Right, there's that in position. Now I think what I'll do is the bolt that goes in there, I will Loctite that. So bear with me 2 ticks while I get the Loctite. What we're going to use, let's have a look. I'll just use a bit of low strength 222, that'll do the job. Right, here we are. I don't want to put Loctite on the ways. Right, there we are. Bit of 222 on the bolt. Down it goes. And you'll get the requisite tool and tighten that up. Lovely, right, that's nipped. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at the where this is sitting. Seems to be sitting nicely on there. I'm just wondering actually if I dare operate the lead screw now. Oh yeah, that's nice. Do you know what? Whisper it, but it's starting to look like a milling machine. Very happy with how that's moving. I think what I'm going to do is just run this backwards and forwards a few times off camera just to get the lubricant nicely spread around, and I'll bring you back and we'll start putting those gib strips in. So maybe you're thinking I'm jumping the gun before putting the gib strips in. I maybe should put these springs in here, but what I want is for the gibs to be fitted so that this assembly is held down prior to putting those springs in, and then I'll be able to set them for the correct tension. I mean, it's extremely unlikely that the weight of this thing is going to be lifted up by some springs, but let's just get the gibs in first. Okay, hopefully you've got a fairly decent view of what I'm doing here now. If I don't put my head in the way of the camera, at least anyway. So I'm going to put the clamps on first, which go like this, or the clamp rather, because I feel it's a lot easier to put that on first than it would be to try and then fit the gibs in between the, or fit this in between the gibs is what I should say. Trying to get that in between the gibs might be a little bit trickier than just fitting that first. Is that light helping? I'm not sure. Yeah, I think so, yeah. Although I keep putting my hand in the way of it, that doesn't help at all, does it? Right, okay, let's get this on. So we'll put a bit of grease, just the merest suggestion, on the threads of this half UNC stud. Let's get the oil can. I should have brought the oil can around here really. It's alright, it's not a journey of many miles to get it. Put some oil on the mating faces, like that. We'll have that on there, like that. Put the washer on, and then the half UNC nut. I haven't got a spanner for this because I'm just going to put it on hand tight. Those threads aren't great. I should have put a tap. Should have put a die along that, but never mind. Let's get a spanner. Because I didn't get a spanner for it, I now need one, don't I? Absolutely typical. Which is a 3/4 inch AF. Right. No, it's okay. It's going on. Just a bit stubborn. I mean, these don't normally come off in normal use. They're used to lock it in position, lock the saddle in position. Right, what's going on? Yeah, almost there. Just looking for a ratchet spanner, but I don't have one, so we'll just carry on with that. Don't have a 3/4 ratchet spanner anyway. So we'll carry on with this. Right, that's it. Okay. Just leave it like that for now. Doesn't want to be too tight. The thing about having a 1/2 inch UNC thread for something like that is that you've got no adjustment. Well, you've got no movement on it really at all. It's either loose or it's gripping like nobody's business. So you haven't got a great deal of finesse with it really. Let's see if we can move this light again. There we are. Right, okay. So the first set of gibs, we'll put the back one in first, I think. Give it some lube. There we are. Right, so now we want 2 5/16 UNC bolts. That goes up there like that. And I put my arm in the way of the light again. There we are. Put the other one in. Trying to hold it in such a way that it doesn't obscure. Oh, it does obscure. Right. Okay. Right. Here we have the 7/32. Let's get these done up. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing. Lift these up. Now, I might have to make some adjustments to that because it is a bit wobbly, but we shall see. It's quite interesting that all of the gibs on this machine, or gibs, whatever you want to call them, are really simple flat gibs. There's nothing complicated about it in that sense of kind of trapezoidal or anything like that. It's all pretty straightforward. Let's put a bit of grease on these threads. There we are. Get this one on. And the next one. Yeah, I think I might have to just finesse these a little bit once they're all fitted. That's a difficult one. That nipple's in the way. Grease nipple. Oh, grease nipple? What am I on about? Don't go down that road. Lubrication nipple. See how easy it is to fall into bad habits? Right, what I want to do now is just screw these up until they're touching the gibs so that the gibs don't slide out when I move the saddle. Okay, so that's that side done. I'll bring you around the other side and we'll do the other side. Okay, so this is how we're looking now. I didn't show you the other side because it was exactly the same. So we've got the 5/16 all tightened up now. We have got the jam nuts on, the 1/4 UNC jam nuts. I won't pretend I've set this properly, or I've done a preliminary setting, I suppose you could say. And the way I've got these gibs, or gibs, I will get the correct pronunciation of that one of these days, set up. I don't have any sort of tight spots as I wind backwards and forwards through the full range of the saddle. I actually think what these should be is more like that, because they are supposed to lock it. Typical kind of Harrison method. They do it on their lathes as well, where they just give you a nut, and the problem is that people put a really big spanner on it and they over tighten it and end up bending something. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute actually. But what we're going to do now is go back to the top of the saddle and we will put those two springs in. Okay, so armed with the requisite Allen key, which is a 5/32 for a 1/4 UNC grub screw. We'll take these two grub screws out and we'll put in these two springs. So let's put a bit of oil down there. It can't hurt, can it? Yep, that should do us. The merest suggestion of a glimmer of grease on those threads, I think, of the grub screws. That's one bit. That's the other. And then the springs slot down through those holes like that. And then we'll tighten up, put the grub screws in now. I suspect that once they are flush, that will be the sort of preload that we're looking for, but we'll see. That feels quite tight, but let's find out and see what happens. Right, let's give it a go. Oh yeah, that's much better. Probably do them up a bit more actually. Yeah, that's good. I like it. Right, so saddle is done. Now, there's one thing I want to show you, which is a little bit concerning, but we'll have a look and see what that's all about. I'll stop the camera and show you. Okay, so I'm zoomed in. I'm looking at one of the gibs on the left-hand side, and can you see that in between, it's not very easy. Yeah, you can see there, look. In between the gib and the bracket, the strip as they call it, there's a slight gap. I haven't measured it, but it's not ridiculously large. Now I'll bring you around to the other side now and I'll show you the gap there. Okay, so on the right hand side, much bigger gap. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Anybody got any ideas? I can't see it's worn out that much. But anyway, it needs thinking about, because basically it's the grub screw is quite lifting that up in order for it to contact the bottom of the way there. So let me know what you think about that in the comments, because that's they've all got a slight gap, but that's the biggest. I'll show you what it's like now. This is like as I move it through its full range of movement. So there's nowhere where it gets kind of tight and loose. It's about the same. That's it up against the stop there now. It's about the same all the way through, and feels pretty good. That's as far as it goes that way. So yeah, I think the gibs are okay. Certainly going to leave them like they are, at least for the time being anyway. Maybe once we get a bit more weight on it, we get the table on there, which hopefully will go on tomorrow at some point. Maybe then we'll have to have a rethink. I am slightly concerned about that gap, so do let me know what you think about that. So here's what I wanted to show you. Do you remember when we looked at, just now, we looked at the saddle locks, those big half-inch UNC nuts, and I said they ought to be more like that. Well, this hole here in the saddle is where the lock for the table goes, and what that looks like is this. Now this is the old one, look, and when I dismantled it originally it was bent because someone had just been tightening that nut up. There wasn't a proper handle on it, just a nut, as I said before, the way Harrison often do. In fact, if I show you my lathe, look, Harrison M250 from the 1980s just has a bolt to lock the saddle when you're doing parting and facing and things like that. So they have this, they've always had this thing with their designs where they just put a nut. But the only problem is somebody puts a spanner on it and then they can get a lot of torque, and they end up doing that. So some time ago, a few years ago now, I made a new one. Here is the new one. So when that goes in, it will be getting fitted with a proper handle and a little lever to operate it, so you can't put too much torque on it. Where that sits on the table is under this sort of recess here, and it just pulls down on it and just grips it and locks the table. Well, there we are, people. Another one comes to an end, and made some more good progress. It really is starting to look like a milling machine now, and I just want to sit here and wind this handle backwards and forwards for all eternity basically, but obviously I can't do that. Thank you very much for watching. It's always a pleasure to have you in my workshop, spending some time with me, and I get to show you what I do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, then please think about doing so. It really helps me, and it gives me the impetus I need to keep going with things, really. If you've liked what I've done today or any of the other things I've done, give me a like. That always helps. It boosts me up in YouTube's eyes, in this kind of, you know, this little niche of YouTube that I inhabit. And so that would be great if you could give me a like. If you are subscribed, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I know I say that every single time, but I do really sincerely mean it. So the next one, we'll be looking at fitting the table and the X-axis lead screw, which I think we're going to have to look at, because I put a video out some time ago now where I thought it was a little bit bent, so we need to revisit that and just do some more investigation and find out what's going on. I also need to look at this gib thing with this gap. I think what I'm going to do is I might take the blocks off, or the strips off again, well no, before I do that, I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to, yes, take the strips off. I'll get there in the end. Take the strips off, take the gibs out, put the strips back on, and try and gauge the gap of each one and find out if I've put one of the gibs in the wrong place or something like that. I may well have done. To the best of my knowledge, they all came out and they were paired up with the strip that they came out with, but over the years that I've been doing this project now, and that they've been in storage in the workshop and they've been moved around, anything could have happened, and they could quite easily have got mixed up. But let me know what you think about that in the comments anyway. I'd really like to hear your opinions and your views. So, well, as I said before, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.